Welcome to Spring LIB.
So in this question, we're looking for the equivalent capacitors of this system. So in part A, what we're looking for is what is equivalent capacitors. So let's first look at C1 and C2, the left side part. We can simplify the circuit to C12 and C34. So C12 equals C1 plus C2 because they're in parallel, and same with C34. It's C3 plus C4 because they're in parallel. And then C12 and C34 are in series. So the final equivalent one is 1 over C12 plus 1 over C34, which is 1 over C1 plus C2 plus 1 over C3 plus C4. And we can choose to simplify this equation, so we get C1 plus C2 times C3 plus C4 over C1 plus C2 plus C3 plus C4. Okay, and part B asks us to find the charge on these four capacitors. So again, because in order to find the charge on each of them, we need to first figure out what the voltage is across each of them. And in order to find what the voltage is across each of them, if we already know that the voltage over A and B is V, we need to figure out how V is distributed onto C12 and C34. So let's figure out the relationship between C12 and C34. These two capacitors, they are in series, meaning the charge of 12 equals the charge of 34 equals Q equals 1, 2, 3, 4 equals C12 V12 equals C34 V34. And this also equals Q. And Q is C equivalent times V. Okay, so let's first look at these two numbers. This gives us V12 equals C equivalent times V over C12. And we can plug in all these plus numbers. So this divided by C12 is C1 plus C2. So we will end up with C3 plus C4 over C1 plus C2 plus C3 plus C4 times V. And similarly, V34 equals C1 plus C2 over the sum of all the capacitances times V. And once we found C12 and C34, because C12 also equals V1, V12 also equals V1 equals V2, and V34 also equals V3 equals V4. So we know the voltage across each of these capacitors. And from that, we can find the charge on each of them. Say Q1 equals C1 V1. So that is C1 times C3 plus C4 over C1 plus C2 plus C3 plus C4 times V. And Q2 equals C2 V2 equals C2 times the same thing. Q3 equals C3 V3. V3 is here. And finally, Q4 equals C4 V4. C1 plus C2. This is C1 plus C2. Okay, so that is the charge on each of these capacitors.